friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show. And today, you guys, we're on episode 170, What in the Actual Internet, Part 1. I am so excited for this series, you guys, for every month just to take a quick little episode. I'm gonna try and keep it quick to talk about weird shit that I find on the internet, whether that has to do with YouTube drama, TikTok drama, past court cases, past mysteries, weird shit, fetishes, freaking weird stuff that I have found over the internet that I just gotta talk about it, because then I sit at home and talk to the cats about it and they don't really care. So this episode is designed to just whatever I find on the internet. Some of it might be dark, some of it might be fucked up, some of it might be light and funny. It'll be all over the place. And today is definitely all over the place. And there's no light or funny about any of the topics that I'm going to cover today. But my goal in these episodes is to take a couple events, things that I find, about 5-10 minutes of each, wrap it up in a nice, quick little short content video. I'm going to try at least. But before we get onto that, just reminding you guys, if you are listening on YouTube or Rumble, make sure to like and subscribe, especially on the new YouTube page, guys. I had to kill the old one, so you can find me there at the Be Real Babe. And you can also find me on Spotify at the Be Real Babe podcast. You can like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And if you are listening on Apple or Spotify as well through the audio, you can actually give us a review on there. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's very helpful for me and us. Oh my God, it's going to take me forever to get out of this us thing. Anyways, you can find my show and it helps everyone else find my show when you guys do reviews. I see all the 5 stars that are already out there. Thank you guys so much. It means the world to me. And then also, if you want to find me on social media, on Instagram and Pinterest, it's the Be Real Babe podcast. And I have slowly started to rebuild the Facebook page at the Be Real Collective. So make sure you guys just give me a shout if you want to hear anything, if you want to be on the show. I absolutely love guests. Even if you think that your story doesn't mean something, it does. So if you have a calling to share your story, your experience, your opinion on whatever it is, shoot me a DM and we can have a conversation. I love it. It's my favorite, honestly. So now I don't have to go into the episode. I could just actually go into the episode. So I have 3 different topics I wanted to go over today. I had a 4th one, but as I started to dive deeper into it, I feel like I needed a little bit more time. So part 2 is going to have something that's a little bit closer to Canada. It just kind of came out a couple days before I was recording this. So I was really trying to catch up before I started recording, but I did not have the time. So we're not going to talk about that one today. I'll keep that for part 2. But today we're going to talk about 3 different topics. One, JonBenet Ramsey. There was a new documentary 60-minute episode that was released about the case and some new evidence that has kind of come forward that could potentially find the killer. We're also going to talk about Ruby Franke and 8 Passengers. This is a YouTube vlogger, a very famous family channel. She has been caught abusing her children and has gone to prison. And then we're also going to talk about Feederism and mainly wanting to circle around death feederism. So we've got a little bit of a difference in all of these episodes, but mainly just weird shit that I found on the internet. So let's dive right in with JonBenet Ramsey. Now, most of you know JonBenet's story, but for those that don't, or if you need a little refresher like I did, let's pull what we found off Wiki, and then I'll kind of go over what I had heard in this video recently that just came out that made me think about this. So JonBenet Ramsey was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family home in Boulder, Colorado. A long handwritten ransom was found in the home. Her father, John, found the girl's body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She had sustained a broken skull from a blow to the head and had been strangled. A garrote was found tied around her neck as well. The autopsy report stated that JonBenet's official cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation associated with cranial cerebral trauma. That was a big word. I don't know about that one. Her death was ruled a homicide. The case generated worldwide public and media interest in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, was a former beauty queen, had entered JonBenet into a series of child beauty pageants. The crime is still considered a cold case and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. The Boulder Police Department initially suspected the ransom note had been written by Patsy and that the note appeared of JonBenet's body had been staged by her parents in order to cover up the murder. Sorry, the appearance of her body. Which, if you guys have read the letter, which it is on the internet, you can go find it. It is quite long, and honestly, it kind of, the way it was worded felt very how internet scams are happening now, and the wording that they were using looks so familiar as I was reading. And it is a really long one, but I find it interesting that they point it right to her because it was a long-winded letter. Like, okay, maybe if you and totally I get it because, boys, you guys text back like K, I get it. You don't talk as much. But that doesn't mean that like why that's a female characteristic maybe I'd say, but to immediately go to the mom for that, I think that's kind of wild to me personally. But anyways, they wanted $118,000, which was exactly the amount that JonBenet's dad's bonus was last year. So I guess there was a lot of suspicious things about this letter allegedly. But I find it, anyways, let's just keep going. I just kind of find it weird that they immediately like, oh, it's a long letter, mom. Like maybe the person was a woman. Doesn't necessarily has like when these things happen, I don't immediately go to the parents. I know that there has bad parents out there, but I personally don't go to immediate parents. So I find this like there was something in this documentary and the 60-minute show where the dad said like it's very dangerous once the cops have their decision made because they kind of ignored everything else allegedly. So let's continue on. So in 1999, the police and district attorney both said that JonBenet's brother Burke, who was 9 years old at the time of her death, was not a suspect. JonBenet's parents gave several televised interviews but resisted police questioning except on their own terms. In October 2013, unsealed documents revealed that 1999 grand jury had recommended filing charges against the Ramseys for permitting the child to be in a threatening situation. John and Patsy were also accused of hindering the prosecution of an unidentified person who had committed the crime of murder in the first degree and child abuse resulting in death. However, the DA determined that there was insufficient evidence to pursue a successful indictment. Yeah, they were accused of hindering. I don't. I mean, maybe I was a bit younger at the time, but that's not what I got. I got completely devastated parents. That's what I got. Like I get it was in their house, but in 2002, the DA's successor took over the investigation of the case from the police and primarily pursued the theory that an intruder had committed the killing. In 2003, trace DNA was also taken from the victim's clothes and was found to belong to an unknown male. Each of the family's DNA had been excluded from this match. The DA sent the Ramseys a letter of apology in 2008 declaring that the family was completely cleared by the DNA results. Others, including former Boulder Police Chief Mark Beckner, disagreed with exonerating the Ramseys, characterizing the DNA as a small piece of evidence that was not proven to have any connection to the crime. In February 2009, the Boulder police took the case back from the DA and reopened the investigation. National and international media coverage of the case focused on Benet's brief beauty pageant career as well as her parents' wealth and the unusual evidence found in the case. Media reports questioned how the police handled the investigation. Ramsey's family members and their friends have filed defamation suits against several media organizations. Okay, so her body was found December 26, 1996 in her family Boulder residence. It was in the basement. So I guess initially on the first walkthrough, they didn't go to where her body was. They went around the whole entire house. And it wasn't until the second time someone went downstairs and looked at the door. Sorry, it was her dad. Sorry, I'm not saying her dad was the one who found her. Could you imagine? Like, this is another thing for, in my mind, it's kind of like, you'd think if he admitted that and he knew where she was, that he would lead the cops there. That's the part I'm a little bit confused about. Anyways, so in this interview, in this 60-minute episode, what it had said is that there's a couple things. The cops were not versed in murder cases back then. I guess Boulder was very, very quiet. It wasn't a huge like crime town, so they weren't very familiar with looking at things. But now that people are going back and searching through this investigation and all the information that's in there, they're finding some things that, had they been a little bit more versed, allegedly they think that they could have solved this. And so I just want to go over a couple of those points, and I really want you guys to go and look into this a little bit deeper, because I think it is absolutely terrible. Like, the parents have now, and the family, completely exonerated. They know that it wasn't them. But here's the shitty thing: most people are going to remember that. You know, it's not spread across the news like it was then. And what really actually breaks my heart is that the mom has passed in 2006. So she's not even going to be seeing the end result of this. I mean, she passed away, unfortunately, of cancer. And she did get to receive the letter exonerating them, and the apology. But at the same time, it's like, that's a couple of years before she passed away, from 1996. So she had to live with that for how long? Like 10 years almost. Like, I really feel for this family. So I guess they said that there was clear indication in the basement that there was a broken window, and there was evidence of her DNA on a suitcase near the window and broken glass. So there's a picture, and you can see the window is open and broken. There's a scuff mark on the wall, and there's like a suitcase where someone could like jump up and get out the window. So it sounds like perhaps they're thinking that that's where they exited. Looking at all the pictures and the investigations now, they said this was a very messy murder. There was a lot of things. Had the right people been there, they would have seen some of these things, because they found pieces of evidence on that suitcase that had the exact same outfit that JonBenet was found in. So there's definitely something there that was missed. There was also a coroner who had very clearly seen two marks, extremely consistent with taser guns, on her, I believe, like her middle part of her body, kind of right down, kind of behind her hips, and then also I believe on her neck is where they said. And he had actually conducted a study about how tasers, because back then in the 90s tasers weren't really common, right? So he had even conducted a study with a pig on how the body reacts to tasers, very consistent of what they were seeing on her body. But nobody listened. And the family knows that even if they would have found out back then that it was a taser, it's not that they think necessarily that they could have found the perpetrator, is that it would have exonerated the family faster. Because what kind of parent would have to tase their kid to get them to listen, right? Like, I'm not trying to be that way. It's just very sad, but parents usually are the safety for kids. That's not sad. It's sad that people abuse that, but it's true. Like, your chances are, you're not, when you're that close, you're not going to need a taser to get your child to go where you need to go. So that coroner wasn't listened to, and that, at least it could have crossed off the parents, I think, is the biggest takeaway. Also has come to light, allegedly, is that they actually knew 2.5 weeks after um, she passed that the family were completely not a part of it, even though DNA wasn't as heavily used back then. Apparently, they knew that. And what sucks, and what is kind of a theme when I'm reading about this, is that allegedly the police had them in mind as being the murderers, and they were not budging about anything else. That they just believed that, point blank, period. Nothing else. I think even after this came out, it's like maybe this ego thing that they don't want to believe it. So no one gave a shit. It's kind of is what it sounded like, and they wanted to pin it on the family. Another really odd thing that happened around the exact same time, about 9 months after this happened to JonBenet, a similar case happened not only 5 minutes down the road from the from JonBenet's house, the Ramsey house, with a girl named Amy. And she, I guess what had happened, it sounds like the criminal was in the house before. They went to bed. The criminal, I don't know another word, the perpetrator went in, did some pretty nasty things to the little girl. The mom heard, woke up, and then the perpetrator jumped out the window, the second floor, and got away. Crazy enough is that this young girl also danced with JonBenet Ramsey. So I think maybe there's something to look at there. Personally, I would think they're 5 minutes away, literally 5 minutes away. And again, this is in the middle of the 90s. Things weren't as crazy as they are now. And the fact that this happened 5 minutes from each other, they didn't look into it at all. This poor Amy, young girl, like, she's good now. They moved away, I guess. She's alive. Something bad happened to her, but she didn't pass. It kind of blows my mind that they didn't look into this at all. Like there's no connection to it. And yeah, so I guess a lot of things that also happened the day that they found her body, they moved her right away. Like the dad grabbed her and moved. So that tampered evidence. Supposedly, apparently, allegedly, there was a lot of evidence tampering in the house while they were searching. The letter had immediately said, do not call the cops or anybody if you do. She's dead. Like I said, you guys should go look up this letter. I'm not going to read it today because I'm already way past the time that I wanted to be, but I just find this super interesting. And it sounds like those that were involved in the case may have been demoted since. It also looks like the family is continually suing for defamation across the place, especially through media outlets that ran with this narrative. So the point to me in this story is just we got to listen to the evidence, but at the same time, it kind of blows my mind how much corruption there is and how I don't know. I just thought this was really crazy. So I just wanted to also bring up, that the parents had nothing to do with it. The family had nothing to do with it. So if that is something that you kind of thought like I had kind of remembered, then now you know otherwise. So I'm really glad to hear that they apologized, but at the same time, I mean, the damage that was done to that family is it's not kind of sad, it's super sad. I just want to bring that up. So let's lead it into another family kind of craziness that I've stumbled on the internet. Ruby Franke, and 8 passengers. So the reason why I want to bring up this topic, for one, I've been following it for quite a while. I didn't watch them as a YouTube channel, but I did watch them on drama channels. And for the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of people have called out this family vlogger for being dysfunctional, aggressive at best. And she didn't really take to that. And now, well, things are changed and she is in prison, going to prison. And I just wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of people look up to these YouTube family vlog channels. And I mean, it's easy for me to say because I just have cats, but I personally cannot stand them in a way that I feel like they exploit their children. These kids have no idea what it means to be out there like this. Their whole entire lives is being spewed across the internet. They have zero informed consent. They have no idea what this is going to be. With the amount of fucked up AI stuff that comes out these days, it actually terrifies me to think how many people put their children on social media and on YouTube for anyone in the world to see and then get a hold of that and do whatever. Not only are you showing them everything that's private to their kids' lives, but you're also showing where you live. And to me, that puts them in front of predators a lot easier. Maybe you can call me a crazy conspiracy theorist, but y'all, child trafficking is a thing. And to me, this sometimes puts a little bit too many breadcrumbs to people's families out there. So, who is Ruby Franke if you guys don't know? So, that is an American former family vlogger who ran the now defunct YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. On August 30th, 2023, she was arrested in Washington County, Utah, and charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse and under Utah law, 4 counts of which she pleaded guilty to. She was sentenced to serve between 4 and 30 years in prison on February 20th, 2024. This is why I want to talk about it because she just got her sentence. So let's go back to the beginning. In early 2015, Franke created a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers in which she documented her family life in Utah with her husband Kevin and their 6 children. She originally posted 5 days a week at 6 a.m. And as of June 2020, the channel had 2.5 million subscribers and amassed to 1 billion views. That terrifies me that there were viewers out there being like, yes, queen, we stan you because she didn't do nice thing to her kids' friends. So beginning in 2020, when one of Franke's children said that he had been banned from his bedroom and made to sleep on a beanbag for 7 months, viewers became concerned about his mother's disciplinary methods, which also included withholding food, sending a child to wilderness camp for troubled teens, threatening to behead a stuffed toy, and telling 2 of her children that Santa Claus would not bring them anything for Christmas that year because they were too numb to respond to other punishments. So let's go back to this withholding food. So this is one of the first things that I learned about this woman. And so I just was immediately disdained. I believe it was her 5-year-old, 6-year-old, maybe I'll be gracious and say 7-year-old, went to school and apparently forgot to make her own lunch. So the school called and was like, hey, she forgot to bring her lunch today. Can you bring her food, please? And she denied her and said, don't you dare give her food. Do not let anybody give her food. This is her responsibility and she needs to learn by not eating. If she wants food, she'll make her own food. Do not feed her. Y'all, I understand teaching. I understand teaching kids responsibilities and all that jazz. I do not understand this. There's no part of me that understands this. Your child made a mistake, that's fine. You want to teach them how to make their food, fine. Do it together, fine. But to not bring her food when she's hungry and to tell people around her not to because she forgot because she's a child, you're disgusting. A change.org petition was launched reporting perceived child abuse and neglect. The Franke parents posted in defense of their discipline, saying that the incidents had been taken out of context. The 8 passengers' YouTube declined in the popularity in 2021. In 2022, the Frankies separated and Kevin moved out of the house. This is important. This is important. Ruby deleted the YouTube channel and began working as a mental health coach at Connections, a company ran by Jody Hildebrandt, a counselor. They launched a new video channel together in 2022 and partnered in an Instagram account called Moms of Truth and with offering parenting classes. Neighbors and the Frankie's oldest daughter, a college student, called authorities to check on the latter's siblings after observing their mother often left the children home alone. So, why is that important? Because through this whole trial, I feel like the focus has really been on Ruby and not as much about Kevin. As far as I know, he's not gotten any trouble because I guess they were in Ruby's custody. At the same time, the fuck don't you know what's going on? So to me, it's like, I can kind of understand, but I can't. I feel like that's neglectful parenting as well. So let's just go through a little bit about their arrests and charges, and we'll leave it at that today. I highly recommend you guys go watch the shows like Do We Know Them podcast, Marquee. They all of them do. Sloan, like everybody has been calling this family out for so long. But yeah, let's just clear this up here, and we'll go on to the last topic. So on August 30th, 2023, Frankie and Hildebrandt were arrested in Ivins, Utah, and 2 days later, both were charged with 6 counts of aggravated child abuse, a felony, according to the statement from the Santa Clara Ivins Public Safety Department. The arrests were triggered after Frankie's 12-year-old son, who appeared emancipated and had open wounds and duct tape around the extremities, around his hands. I'm not sure about his feet, had climbed through a window in the Hildebrandt's house and asking neighbors for food and water. So this kid literally just showed up on a neighbor's doorstep. You can actually look up the emergency call about this. And they said that quite often these kids are roaming the street. Emergency services found Frankie's 10-year-old daughter in the house, also malnourished. Both children were taken to a hospital where the boy was treated for severe malnutrition, deep lacerations from being tied up with a rope. A search of the house found evidence consistent with the markings on the 12-year-old, and the Utah Division of Child and Family Services took the boy and the girl and 2 more of Frankie's children into care. Police later reported that according to the boy, cayenne pepper and honey had been used to dress his wounds. Mm-hmm. Frankie and Hildebrandt were held without bail. Damn right. Hildebrandt surrendered her license as a counselor, no shit, pending resolution of the court case and disciplinary investigation. After her arrest, YouTube banned Frankie from the platform, also deleting 2 channels which were linked to her. Like, I hate the suppression I get from YouTube, but like, these people deserve it, okay? Not me. December 18th, 2023, Frankie pled guilty to 4 counts of aggravated child abuse. She later pled not guilty to the 2 other counts. The factual basis elucidated the abuse in greater detail, including an incident of Frankie forcing her son to work outdoors over several weeks with inadequate protection, resulting in severe sunburns, and claims that the children were possessed. Yeah, there's a big part of that too, where she kind of, I think she fell down too many rabbit holes and had no one to stop her, is really what I truly think. There's a lot of talk about her being like anti-government, anti-pharma, anti all these things, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but to the point where she thinks that her children were possessed and they needed to do all these things, which is pretty fucked up. Frankie agreed to serve a prison sentence and serve her respective sentences consecutively rather than concurrently. Frankie was expected to testify against Hildebrandt in Hildebrandt's upcoming trial, but Hildebrandt separately pleaded guilty to 4 counts of felony aggravated child abuse on December 27th, with 2 charges dropped as part of another plea deal. On February 20th, 2024, Frankie received 4 consecutive sentences between 1 and 15 years imprisonment, with exact terms she will serve to be decided by the Board of Utah Pardons and Parole. So she could serve 4 years, or she could serve 30. In December 2023, Frankie's husband filed for divorce after the couple had been separated for more than a year. Which I don't know if that's the rule in the States, but in Canada, you have to be separated for a year before you can actually go through your divorce process. You can do You could do a separation agreement. So when the divorce comes up, there's nothing more than just signing, which is something that I did with my ex-husband, which is, not nice, but kind of nice because you kind of just get it over with and there's no fighting. But we had a very different divorce than these guys. So um, Frankies were also a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm just going to point that out and not say much more. But I guess all Frankie's sisters are parenting influencers, and they have disassociated for a long time now, and have kind of warned people about this. So my point with that one, you guys, is that I just want people to know that it is very easy for these influencers and vlogging channels and family channels, especially, to manipulate their children, to abuse their children, to take advantage of them. And I think it's just absolutely awful. These aren't the only ones that are out there, but this is the biggest one. And they've been getting called out for years, years and years and years. I am so shocked it took this long for this to come out, but I'm so glad it did. Like I said, I've been watching this for probably 4 or 5 years now. Um, Sorry, maybe like close to 3 or 4. I'm being a little bit more dramatic. And I have seen all of my favorite YouTubers call her out, and she just no. And the shitty thing is that Jody Hildebrand was the one that said all this stuff is cool and okay. So might just be careful of where you get your advice from. Okay. And also just be very careful how deep on the rabbit holes you go, and make sure you touch grass in reality from time to time. Okay. So one more topic and we're done for today. I'm almost there, guys. I almost did half an hour. I'm so proud of myself. So let's go to the next topic. Feederism. Okay. So this is a new thing that I just stumbled across. I'm just going to read what PubMed says Feederism is from 2011. So this is quite old, but just to show how long this has been going around and where it kind of is now and how I fell down this tiny little rabbit hole. So, what is feederism? This is just feederism in a woman. Feederism is a fat fetish subculture in which individuals eroticize weight gain and feeding. Feeders are individuals who claim to become sexually aroused by feeding their partners and encouraging them to gain weight. Conversely, feedees are individuals who claim to become sexually aroused by eating, being fed, and the idea or act of gaining weight. Very little is known about this population. This report describes a woman who self identifies as a feedie. It is unclear at present whether female feederism represents a unique paraphilia or a thematic variation of morphophilia or sexual machoism. Machoism? Masochism? I don't know. You guys, I'm terrible. I should look at this more. I'll do better. But, anyways, before I get into this story that brought this into my life, I just want everyone to know that nowhere, shape, or form am I like kink shaming or fetish shaming, but at some point, there's got to be a little shame when shit gets extreme, okay? So, I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from reading about this is that these women or men are super vulnerable. They're insecure about something, and the fetishee takes advantage of that and manipulates that to the point of death. Like, they sexually get aroused from them gaining weight, whichever, if that's what you prefer in the bodies that you're banging, fuck yeah. But to the point where you're making your spouse extremely unhealthy to die, that's nuts. And what I've read from this is a lot of women, uh, they get manipulated by the kind words that they so absolutely deserve to hear. Like, you're beautiful, you're perfect the way you are. And I'm not saying that these women do not deserve to hear that. But when you're using those words to do that, to manipulate someone to death and feeding them to death, and you're using that to convince them that what's happening is okay, I'm just not sure I'm okay with that, you guys. I think it's absolutely perfect when a spouse is telling their spouse, especially calming their anxiety, or their self doubt or their hate about their own body. I think that's amazing. You should do that. I think that's the greatest thing you could do as a spouse. But there gets to be a point where it's extreme and it's not actually for love. It's for some sick, I don't know what. So some of the things that I've read is, and again, if this is your fetish and you are taking care of it in a healthy manner, especially if you guys are all on board, you love cooking together and you love seeing your spouse happy eating, like, I completely understand that. I think that's a beautiful way for you to love each other and communicate, and even whatever you want to throw that on your naked bodies and go nuts. Like, I truly do not care. I was really enjoying listening to this one YouTuber, how he was explaining it. He made it really funny, saying like Thanksgiving was like the foodies like big thing, and like, go off, sis. If you guys want to feed each other and cook food, like, all the power to you. Sometimes I do think this is quite a privileged problem to have because it does cost a lot of money. So I do believe you need a lot of money to be able to be in this fetish. But what I don't like and why I'm mad about this is because I was listening to this one woman's story, and what she was saying is that she was so down on her luck, and the guys that were sending her stuff were just continually validating her and being like, "You're beautiful" and all that. And she had never had that attention before, and she was really craving it. And it was from all these guys. They would send her, like, there's apps, you guys, where they can send food to them. They want sometimes an exchange, like video yourself eating it or take a picture of what you bought or picture of yourself after. Like, there literally be apps out there to do this. And again, do whatever you want. Not fully here to kink shame, but please don't do it to the point where you're killing people. Or make sure that is in a consensual relationship. I think that's the biggest thing. Again, coming down to informed consent. There is a lot of women and men that have said that they have been groomed by feeders to become their feedies, and just that part is a little scary to me. That's the part that I don't love because again, it's taking someone's insecurity and gaslighting them and kind of cult like behavior, warping their mind to do something that's sick and twisted. Again, not sick and twisted if you guys enjoyed this and you're informed. There's so many women that said I had no idea that's what was happening. And then over time, I had gained 100 pounds in like a year. And I was like, what the fuck? And I'm sick and they don't care. Like this comes with illnesses, this comes with pain, this comes with medical problems. This isn't just something like, oh, I have a fetish for red hair and I want to make you dye your hair red. This is like a lot, you guys. So I just want you guys to look into it, form your own opinion. I just didn't know this existed, and I just want to call out the extremes of this. And I want to see again this be something that people have informed consent in. If you are someone that fetishes to watch someone gain weight because for whatever reason, I read all different reasons, from like I was poor growing up, and so I don't want someone to ever be like not go without food, so I just eat and I want my partner to do that. Or some of them have eating disorders where they don't want to eat, so they shove it into their partner. And there are tons of people absolutely that are attracted to larger bodies and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that's not a thing, but when you get off on them dying, that's and the other part is that it says it has a lot to do about control, right? Where I don't want you to be attractive, so I'm going to make you eat so much that you quote unquote art to part of the population that doesn't think that's attractive. Or I want you so housebound that you can't go where or do anything and you depend on me entirely. And I'm not making this up. This shit happens. So I'm going to read the story of where I got through it, and I want you guys to go and look at this and more into it if you want to. Again, I just want there to be awareness so that if someone is going through this and they notice that their spouse is doing something and you don't have informed consent on being a feedie, and they're guilting you and saying they're not going to think you're attractive or beautiful if you don't like, there's guys that literally said, there's this one story I listened to where he said, if you aren't like 500-600 pounds, I'm going to leave you. And she's from a foreign country. This was just at the beginning of the pandemic. She lost her job. She literally had nowhere to go, so she had to stay with him. And then she didn't have any money because she lost her job. So he made her take pictures of herself for OF and all these like feedies, and made money off of her. Then come to find out 4 or 5 months later that the landlord wasn't even charging them rent. So he was literally just exploiting her and making her gain weight. And she didn't want to eat it. She felt uncomfortable. She's like, I don't feel good in my body. I'm tired. Like, again, a lot of weight gain. And if it's not something you want, like, then those consequences are not going to be worth it to you, right? So anyways, a plus size model issued a scary warning about death feederism after she claimed a man she met online tried to make her eat until she died. The size 6X model Rosie Jean has thousands of followers across Instagram, YouTube, and OnlyFans, where she charges $20 a month. Rosie shared her experience on We're All Insane podcast hosted by Devra Roloff. This is where she came onto my radar. So shout out to Devra. Go and check out that podcast to see this whole entire interview. It's a very interesting interview. She shared that her weight gain started after she was sexually abused as a small child. But her weight really began to balloon when she started using sites like Chartabate, where men would encourage her to eat. Alarmingly, a man she met online discovered where she lived and began to stalk her. Rosie said she met the stalker on Reddit, who went on to groom and manipulate her, which if you guys go on Reddit, if you go on Quora, if you go on a bunch of these like boards, and you'll see a lot of people looking for these individuals. Again, just be safe. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. Just be safe. Make sure you're getting your health checked, okay? I mean, there's fucking mukbangers out there like Nikakava Adakavo that's got OnlyFans. Like, what's the fucking difference? And YouTube, they get paid to eat food for that ASMR. You know what I mean? So do whatever you want. Just please make sure that your health is safe mentally and physically. Um, so yeah, it sounded like it was like the perfect match, right? Like, and you know, that's I think the part that should be a red flag, but we all want that happy ending, right? And so she said the thing about this guy, I think he was into death feederism, and death feederism is what exactly what it sounds like. It's feeding someone to the point that they get so big and so fat that they die. Rosie believed that the man was into trauma porn and wanted to turn her into a trauma porn factory. She said her boyfriend She said she had a boyfriend, but claimed that the stalker convinced her she was polyamorous. Inevitably, she began lying to her boyfriend so she could meet her stalker in a hotel where he coerced her into being fed while they made love. I didn't want to go, and I didn't want to cheat on my boyfriend. I really didn't. But at the time I didn't understand the nuance of what coercion was. The feederism community has some serious cult-like mentality, and this is what I'm saying, right? They get into their brains, and because generally, I mean, most of us aren't always mentally sound. For the most part, most of us are going through shit. And it just takes that one master manipulator to find that one thing to keep going in, right? And again, if you're someone that doesn't get attention, now all of a sudden you're getting all this love bombing. We see this in cults, right? It's the same fucking thing. So Rosie shared her experience of sex parties she went to early in her career where men would pay to have sex with plus size women. I mean, totally fine. Again, if you're consenting, go off, sis. Just again, check your mental and spiritual and physical health. I was doing anything just to feel alive. I wouldn't do sex parties again. They were some private parties that were awesome and fun and great and cute. But it got seedier though. Rosie said some parties hosts were using their kids' beds to help be a part of the party. You know, this is where it is. You cross one line and then you just start crossing a bunch of other ones. It got even, no, I read that. Rosie suffered a mental breakdown and ended up in the psych ward and had been diagnosed with ADHD and PTSD. And I think after in the show, she mentioned that she actually has CPTSD, which is complex PTSD, which is like continually living with it all the time, right? So it's not just like one time in your life, it's like complex over time trauma. She now focuses on her YouTube channel and getting treatment for an eating disorder. So make sure you go and follow her, guys. But there's a lot in these comment sections in these videos too that I went and found that I was going to pull up, but we're already at 40 minutes and I promised you guys I was going to try and have a short content one. I really tried. I had 5 originally, so I'm glad I just went down to 3, and now I know 3 is going to be my max. But again, informed consent. If you want to do these weird kinks, no, I'm not gonna say weird. I don't mean to say weird, but just maybe out of the normal, right? I'm a vanilla person, okay? I'm not into this, okay? Not to share. This is so to me, this is weird, right? And I mean, whatever, whipped cream, doing those things, that's fine. We're talking like they're having sex in the restaurants right after they eat kind of thing because watching each other eat food is so sexually arousing that they can't handle not waiting until they get home, which again is totally fine. You should have that electricity in your relationship. But what has been common in these stories that I've read is that's where it kind of ends. Is like there's that sexual tension, but there wasn't like deep connection and romance and relationship. It was just kind of like, again, like a sort of kink thing. So if that's what you're into and both parties are understanding, all good. But it really sounds like a lot of these women get love bombed and then convinced that they have to keep gaining weight till 4, 5, 600 pounds, which we know comes with a lot of problems, and these women say that like they're having infections, they're having, issues, and the spouse as well. If you don't do this, I'm not going to love you. Like that is just abuse is abuse, no matter how it's dealt. And so I just really want people to open their eyes a little bit more, be a little bit more compassionate when you see stories like this, because people take advantage at the absolute worst times of individuals. We see that across the board everywhere, and this is no different. This gets a little bit scary when all of a sudden you get to death feederism. You know what I mean? Where it's like some of these individuals broke up with them because they refused to gain more weight. Like the one story, she didn't even want him to go to the hospital, even though he had an infection in his leg, because she was worried the doctor would tell him to lose weight. And she wanted to be with a guy that was like that Ripley, believe it or not, like Biggest Man. Like she wanted this guy to be him. Like that was a whole other story. But anyway, so it just goes to show that well, for one, there's definitely a lot more kinks and fetishes and that kind of shit that I had any idea to. But again, when it comes down to it, I truly don't give a shit. That's your bedroom. I'm not going to do that in your bedroom with you for multiple reasons. I just want those people to have informed consent. And when you're fucking with someone's health like this, that ain't okay. That is not okay. They definitely have to be knowing what they're going through, because if they decide that they want to lose the weight one day, imagine you help that person in a couple years put on a couple 100 pounds. It is so much easier to put weight on than it is to get it off. And you're just putting your health at so many different risks by doing this. It's absolutely insane. And if you want to do that knowingly and that's your choice in life, then fucking rock on. Like, I'm not in a point in my life where I want to tell anyone to do anything except for make sure that whatever you're doing, the person you're doing it with, the people that you're doing with around you are on board and you're not manipulating or hurting them. Because if that's what you're doing, then you're the lowest piece of trash and you can go pound a fucking cactus for all I care. But anyways, you guys, those are my three. Not necessarily, okay, the last one to me is a little fucked up, very fucked up, the death, the Ruby Franke thing. That is fucked up. Do not abuse your children, and please do not look up to these family vloggers all the time. Just be aware, like, take what you can from them, but also be aware that they're also not what we think they are sometimes. And then when it came to the JonBenet Ramsey thing, I just want people to know that the family has been cleared and hopefully they'll find something, and how badly it seemed like they took care of that case. And it's not the only one. We see this all the time, and you'll see more about these on this episode, on these types of episodes, because especially if someone was accused of something and that's been turned around, I definitely want to make sure to spread that out there, because I can't imagine what that would be like as you're going through this, being accused and always thought that you were the one that killed your daughter when you did not do that. Like, that is just, oh, I can't imagine what that felt like. But anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please let me know if you are on Instagram or Facebook if you like these episodes. I don't want to say I had a lot of fun diving into this, because it's not the right word, but I do love learning things and I love informing people of the crazy things that are out there. And so you don't have to rot your brain. I will a little bit for you. Anyways, guys, I really hope you like this episode and you're enjoying season 7. I'm really enjoying it being by myself. It's kind of been fun. But it's also pushed me to grow a little bit more and see what else I can do with this podcast and reach out to more people for guests. So thank you guys again so much for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on all notifications. And until next time, guys, bye. Thank you guys so much for the support. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please give me a follow at the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Pinterest. You can also find me on Facebook at the Be Real Collective. Until next time, guys, bye!